My parents called me uneducated trash and kicked me out. "Get out, you lowlife," my dad yelled. They had no idea I make $20 million a year. I just said, okay, fine, and didn't argue at all. The next day, I moved into my Florida beach house. 3 weeks later. You know, there are moments in life when your entire world shifts on its axis, and you suddenly see people you've loved your whole life for who they truly are. For me, that moment came just last month when my own father, at his 60th birthday dinner, looked me in the eye and called me uneducated trash. What he didn't know then was that I had secretly built a $20 million business from nothing, and the look on his face 3 weeks later when the truth finally exploded into their lives. That, my friends, was worth every single tear I'd ever shed. I'm Amanda, and at 32, I had achieved something pretty incredible without ever stepping foot into a college classroom. Growing up in Columbus, Ohio, in a perfectly average neighborhood, expectations were always clear: college, then a stable job. My dad, William, an accountant for 30 years, believed with an almost religious fervor that a degree was the only path to success. My mom, Patricia, an elementary school teacher, quietly echoed his sentiments. My siblings, Thomas and Jennifer, fit right into that mold, but I always felt like an outlier. Even at 10, while other kids were just playing, I was running an elaborate lemonade stand, complete with different flavors and loyalty cards. By 13, I was fixing neighbors' computers, charging a fraction of what the local shop did. My parents? They just saw them as cute hobbies. "Amanda needs to focus on academics," my dad would say at dinner. "These little games won't pay the bills." High school was a struggle, not because of the academics, but because my heart wasn't in it. I maintained decent grades, but my real education came from devouring business books and following entrepreneurs online. While Thomas and Jennifer were joining clubs for their college applications, I was quietly launching an online store selling custom phone cases, pulling in almost $2,000 before graduation. To keep the peace, I enrolled in community college. 1 semester was all it took. It felt like a cage. The business courses were outdated, taught by professors who'd never actually built a company. When I told my parents I was dropping out, the argument lasted for days. My father's face went scarlet. "You will throw your life away," he roared. "No child of mine will be a college dropout working minimum wage jobs forever." But at 19, with just $2,000 saved from my hustles, I left anyway. Those first months were brutal. I rented a tiny studio in a neighborhood where you definitely didn't do laundry after dark. Ramen noodles and discount groceries were my gourmet meals. I worked 18-hour days, pouring everything into building my e-commerce platform. My first 3 business attempts crashed and burned. A dropshipping venture failed when suppliers sent defective products. My social media service collapsed because I underpriced myself and burned out. My handmade jewelry couldn't scale beyond a few local markets. Each failure stung, but it also taught me lessons no college could: supply chain management, client contracts, production scalability. It was a brutal education, but it was mine. The turning point came when I met Sophia at a local networking event. She was 20 years my senior, with multiple successful businesses under her belt, and she saw something in me my family never did. She became the mentor I desperately needed. "Education comes in many forms, Amanda," she'd tell me over coffee. "Some of the most successful people I know learn by doing, not by sitting in classrooms." With her guidance, at 22, I refined my vision and launched an e-commerce platform, Heartland Made. It connected small American manufacturers with customers seeking locally made products, right when interest in supporting small businesses was skyrocketing. Those early days were pure sacrifice. My tiny apartment became my office, my futon my bed, surrounded by my desktop and printer. From 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., I was coding, managing customer service, everything. 8 months in, a popular lifestyle blogger featured one of our artisan partners, and the floodgates opened. Orders poured in, overwhelming our basic systems. I worked 72 hours straight, fulfilling orders, upgrading the website. That single feature brought in $10,000 in revenue, more money than I'd ever seen. Excited, I called my parents. My father's response was a punch to the gut. "That's nice, honey, but it's probably just temporary. You know, you can always go back to college when this thing runs its course." His words stung, but they also ignited a fire. I would prove him wrong, not with arguments, but with undeniable success. The next 5 years were a relentless blur of growth and challenges. Heartland Made grew from 27 artisan partners in 3 states to over 400 across all 50. We connected countless craftspeople with customers who valued American-made products. Every step brought a new crisis: servers crashing during promotions, 48 hours straight with developers, competitors poaching sellers, driving across states to meet them personally. The toughest was a cash flow crisis in year 2. We were growing too fast, inventory costs outpacing revenue. I went without a salary for 4 months, moved to an even smaller apartment, negotiated payment terms with suppliers. Those months taught me financial discipline that became invaluable. Milestones came fast. Our first office downtown, 3 employees, crossing $1 million in annual revenue. I celebrated that last one alone in my office with a single glass of champagne after everyone else had gone home. Through it all, I kept my growing success quiet with my family. They knew I had a website business that was doing okay, but I deliberately downplayed the true scale. Their initial discouragement had created a barrier I couldn't bring myself to cross. Part of me hoped they would eventually ask, genuinely interested, but those conversations never materialized. Despite their lukewarm support, I continued to help them financially whenever they needed it. When my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer in year 4, I anonymously paid the $75,000 in medical expenses not covered by insurance. My father just mentioned an insurance settlement that had saved them. My brother Thomas needed $40,000 for his house down payment. I created a family loan through a separate account, making it look like it came from a distant uncle. He took the money readily, but still made comments about me getting a real job with benefits. My sister Jennifer's wedding shortfall of $50,000? I covered it. She knew the money came from me but minimized my contribution, calling it my little website business having a good year. The disconnect was a constant, growing ache. By day, I was leading strategy meetings for a multi-million-dollar company, making decisions that impacted hundreds of businesses and dozens of employees. By night, I was fielding texts from family members who still treated me like the college dropout who'd gotten lucky with an internet thing. My company headquarters expanded to a full floor in a downtown office building, with 38 full-time employees and a robust internship program. Our valuation hit $20 million after a profile in Business Insider, bringing in investor interest, but I maintained majority ownership, turning down offers that would have made me instantly wealthy but cost me control of my vision. As my father's 60th birthday approached, I made a decision. It was time to be honest. Not to boast, but to finally break through the misconceptions and, I desperately hoped, earn the respect I'd been craving for years. I bought him a substantial gift: a fully paid retirement investment account. I planned to present it, along with the truth about my business, at his dinner. The night before, I rehearsed what I'd say. I wasn't that uncertain 19-year-old anymore. I was a successful entrepreneur, creating opportunities for hundreds of American manufacturers and dozens of employees. Surely, that would finally earn my father's respect and change how my family viewed my unconventional path. I couldn't have been more wrong. The evening started pleasantly enough. Their house was exactly as it had been my entire childhood. The only new addition was a large television my brother had bought them for Christmas, prominently displayed as his contribution. My mother greeted me with her usual restrained affection. "You look nice, Amanda. Did you cut your hair?" It was the same haircut I'd had for 3 years. Thomas and his wife, Heather, arrived, impeccably dressed. Jennifer and Daniel followed, Jennifer immediately launching into stories about her promotion at the accounting firm. "The partners are already hinting I might make junior partner next year," she announced, youngest in firm history. Throughout all the pre-dinner chatter, my career wasn't even a blip on their radar. When Daniel briefly mentioned an e-commerce article, Thomas quickly changed the subject to his son's Little League achievements. Dinner was Mom's traditional pot roast on the good china. My father sat at the head of the table, basking in compliments about his youthful appearance. "65 looks good on you, Dad," Thomas said, raising his glass. "Here's to another 20 years. As dessert was served, I knew it was time. I'd waded through endless discussions of neighborhood gossip, my nieces' and nephews' accomplishments, Jennifer's vacation plans. Not one person had asked about my life. "Dad, Mom, everyone," I began, my heart pounding despite my calm exterior. "I wanted to share some news about my company." My father nodded absently, already reaching for another slice of cake. "Heartland Made was recently valued at $20 million, I continued. "We've received several acquisition offers, and I was featured in Business Insider and Entrepreneur magazine last month." The silence that followed was deafening. My mother froze with her fork midair. Jennifer exchanged a quick, shocked glance with Daniel. Thomas just stared. My father was the first to speak, his tone instantly dismissive. What exactly does that mean, Amanda? These internet businesses use all sorts of funny math for these valuations. I kept my composure, explaining in simple terms: revenue streams, growth trajectory, our office with 38 employees, our partnerships with over 400 manufacturers. Thomas cut me off before I could finish. So, you got lucky with this online thing. That's great, but some of us have been building real careers with actual qualifications. He emphasized qualifications, glancing at his wife, who nodded. It's not luck, I responded calmly. It's 7 years of working 18-hour days, solving complex problems, building something meaningful. We've helped save dozens of American manufacturing businesses that were on the verge of closing. My mother finally spoke, her voice tentative. That sounds impressive, dear. Though I still wish you had finished your degree. Even with this business, education is important. My patience was wearing thin, but I pressed on. Actually, I brought something for Dad. I handed him an envelope with the retirement account documentation. I wanted to ensure you both have a comfortable retirement. My father opened the envelope. His expression darkened, flushing with what looked remarkably like anger. Not gratitude. What is this supposed to be? He dropped the papers onto the table. Some kind of charity? We didn't raise you to throw money around like you're better than everyone. That's not my intention at all, I explained. I just wanted to help, the same way I helped with Mom's medical bills, Thomas's house down payment, and Jennifer's wedding. 3 heads snapped up simultaneously. My secret financial assistance exposed. You, my father sputtered. That was all you. Jennifer looked mortified. Thomas's expression hardened into something ugly. My mother just looked confused. You've been secretly paying for things behind our backs. My father's voice rose with each word. Playing the big shot with your internet money. I was just trying to help, I replied, my voice smaller than I intended. I never wanted recognition. I just wanted to support the family. Support? Thomas interjected. By making us feel like charity cases? Some of us work honest jobs with actual degrees, not getting rich quick with online schemes. It's not a scheme. I insisted, feeling the conversation spiraling out of control. I built a legitimate business that helps American manufacturers. We employ dozens of people with good salaries and benefits. My father stood up, his napkin falling to the floor. You drop out of college against our advice. Disappear into your little internet world. And now you come back throwing money around like you have all the answers. That's not what I'm doing. I protested, fighting to keep my voice steady. You think your money makes you successful? He continued, his voice now a roar. You are still just uneducated trash who got lucky. Anyone can get lucky. The room fell silent. My mother gasped softly but said nothing in my defense. Thomas looked down at his plate, a slight, ugly smile playing at the corner of his mouth. Jennifer appeared torn between embarrassment and agreement. William, my mother finally whispered, too late and too quietly to matter. No, my father continued, now fully enraged. I have worked my entire life the right way. I got an education, built a respectable career, raised a family. I will not be shown up in my own home by my dropout daughter. I stood slowly, gathering my purse. I should go. Yes, you should, my father spat. Get out of my house, you lowlife. Your money does not make you part of this family. We have standards. The words hit like physical blows. I looked at each face around the table, searching for any ally, any sign of support. There was none. Happy birthday, Dad, I said quietly, walking toward the door with as much dignity as I could muster. No one followed me out. No one called after me. I got into my car, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. As I pulled away from the house I had grown up in, I realized something fundamental had broken, something that could never be repaired. The drive back to my hotel was a blur of streetlights and tears. I had to pull over twice when emotion overwhelmed my ability to drive safely. The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. I owned a multi-million-dollar company, yet was spending the night in a hotel in my hometown because my own family's house was no longer open to me. In the sterile quiet of my hotel room, I replayed the evening over and over, analyzing each word, each reaction. Had I been too forward, too proud? Had I misread our family dynamic all these years? The financial help I had provided now felt like a foolish attempt to buy approval I could never earn through my achievements alone. I pulled out my laptop and began documenting every single cent I had given my family over the years. The list was substantial. $75,000 for my mother's cancer treatment, paid directly. $120,000 for my brother's house, covering not just the down payment, but renovations he requested months later. $50,000 for my sister's wedding, including the venue, catering, and a honeymoon she never knew I funded. Countless smaller expenses, my father's car repair, my mother's kitchen renovation, Christmas, birthdays, emergencies, all quietly handled through accounts designed to obscure their source. Nearly $300,000 in total, not counting the retirement account my father had just rejected. Money I never expected to be repaid, given freely out of love for a family that had just called me trash. My phone lit up with a text from Jennifer around midnight. Dad is still upset, but he'll get over it. You know how he gets when his authority is challenged. No apology, no acknowledgement of the horrific things said. Just an expectation that I would absorb the abuse and return to the family dynamic as if nothing had happened. I didn't respond. The next morning, I contacted a therapist in the city where I normally lived. Dr. Richardson agreed to an emergency virtual session that afternoon. Family wounds cut deepest, she observed after I recounted the dinner, especially when they target the very things we've worked hardest to overcome. Over the following days, Dr. Richardson helped me understand the complex dynamics. My success threatened their hierarchy, their values. My financial assistance, far from earning gratitude, had created resentment by highlighting a shift in power they weren't prepared to accept. Your father's identity is built around being the provider and authority, she explained. Your success challenges both roles. I began journaling, documenting not just that night, but patterns throughout my childhood, subtle ways my entrepreneurial spirit had been discouraged, how academic achievements were celebrated while my business successes were minimized. This process revealed how deeply I had internalized those messages. Despite my outward success, a part of me still felt like the family failure, the dropout who had something to prove. This explained my reluctance to openly discuss my achievements and my continuous financial support without recognition. A week after the disastrous dinner, my sister called. I let it go to voicemail. Amanda, please call back. Dad feels bad about what happened. We all do. But you have to understand how it looked. You coming in and basically showing off your money. It was insensitive to the rest of us who worked hard for our careers. I deleted the message without returning the call. The narrative twist was breathtaking. Somehow, I had become the villain for simply stating facts about my business after years of minimizing my success. My brother texted next, family is family. Let's move past this. No apology there either, just an expectation that I would accept my designated role and the treatment that came with it. 2 weeks after the dinner, I made a decision that felt both terrifying and liberating. I would prioritize self-respect over toxic family dynamics. The beach house I'd purchased in Naples, Florida, the previous year as an investment property, would become my new home. Before leaving, I wrote a letter to my parents. Not an angry tirade, but an honest expression of hurt and disappointment. Dear Mom and Dad, I have spent years seeking your approval and respect. I have supported our family financially while downplaying my success to avoid making anyone uncomfortable. Despite building a $20 million company that helps preserve American manufacturing jobs, I have been made to feel like the family failure because I chose a different path than the one you prescribed. When Dad called me uneducated trash and a lowlife, it revealed how you truly see me. No amount of success will ever change that perception. I cannot continue to participate in a relationship where my worth is measured by credentials rather than character and achievement. I will always love you both, but I need to create distance for my own well-being. I hope someday we can rebuild our relationship on a foundation of mutual respect. Love, Amanda. I sealed the letter and mailed it personally. No response came in the days that followed. With the help of my executive assistant, I arranged for my personal belongings in Ohio to be packed and shipped to Florida. I instructed her to donate most of my furniture and clothing to local charities, wanting a fresh start with minimal baggage, both literal and figurative. My company could be run remotely with occasional trips back for important meetings. The leadership team I had built over the years was strong enough to handle day-to-day operations without my physical presence. As I boarded the plane to Florida, I felt a complex mixture of grief and freedom. The family I had tried so desperately to please was behind me, but so was the burden of seeking approval I would never receive. Naples, Florida, greeted me with warm sunshine and salt-scented air, a stark contrast to the gray Ohio winter I had left behind. My beach house stood on a quiet stretch of shoreline, a modern 2-story structure with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the Gulf of Mexico. I had purchased it as an investment property the previous year, only visiting twice for brief vacations. When I first arrived, the property felt impersonal, like an upscale hotel. The real estate agent had handled the furnishing with standard luxury vacation home decor, attractive, but soulless. Making this house truly mine became a form of therapy. I started with the primary bedroom, replacing the generic beige bedding with handcrafted quilts from one of my Heartland-made artisans in North Carolina. The mass-produced art came down, replaced with original pieces from emerging American artists I'd discovered through the business. Each morning, I woke to the sound of waves and the sight of authentic creativity surrounding me. The kitchen transformation came next. I installed open shelving to display handmade pottery from our Vermont and New Mexico partners. The industrial-grade appliances remained, but now colorful, hand-woven textiles. And locally crafted wooden serving boards warmed the space. Establishing routines became essential to my healing process. Each morning began with a sunrise walk along the beach, feet in the cool sand, collecting shells and watching dolphins arc through the waves offshore. I found a local coffee shop run by a Cuban-American family where I became a regular, greeted by name rather than order. Running the business remotely proved easier than anticipated. Video conferences replaced in-person meetings, and our established systems functioned smoothly, with minimal adjustment. Without the daily commute and office distractions, I found myself more productive, making clearer decisions from my peaceful new headquarters. My executive team visited after the first month, spending 3 days in strategic planning sessions on my oceanfront deck. Several commented on the positive change they noticed in my leadership style. "You seem more centered," Amanda, Marcus, my operations director, observed, "more confident in your decisions." He was right. Without the undercurrent of seeking family approval, my business instincts flowed more naturally. I trusted my judgment without the shadow of my father's criticism hanging over each choice. Community involvement became another anchor in my new life. I joined the local chamber of commerce and a business women's networking group. Unlike in my hometown, where I had downplayed my success, here I was open about my company and achievements. The respect came naturally, without the baggage of who I had been before my success. I befriended Eliza, the owner of a local art gallery, who introduced me to her circle of friends. These were accomplished women in their 30s and 40s who valued each other for present achievements rather than past credentials. Our weekly dinner gatherings became a highlight, filled with laughter and conversations that never once included questions about my education or suggestions that I had merely gotten lucky. The unexpected visit came 3 weeks into my Florida residence. My brother Thomas arrived unannounced at my door one Saturday afternoon. "Nice place," he said, whistling as he surveyed the ocean view from my living room. "Really nice." His appearance was jarring in my new sanctuary. He looked out of place in his button-down shirt and pressed khakis amid my casual coastal decor. "What brings you to Florida, Thomas?" I asked, not offering a drink or a seat. "Family," he replied with the same confident smile he'd used to charm our parents since childhood. "And I could use some advice about an investment opportunity, possibly a loan to get in on the ground floor." Some patterns were too predictable to be surprising. Without my parents as an audience, his pretense dropped quickly. This was a financial visit, nothing more. "I'm not making any loans to family members anymore," I said firmly. "That chapter is closed." His expression hardened. "So that's how it is. You moved to your beach mansion and forget where you came from. Dad was right about you." "Dad called me uneducated trash and kicked me out of his house," I reminded him. "Is that what you came here to reinforce?" Thomas backpedaled quickly. "He didn't mean it like that. You know how he gets. Family fights happen." "That was not a fight. It was a revelation," I replied. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have plans this afternoon." After showing him out, I sat on my deck, watching the waves, surprisingly unshaken by the encounter. The boundaries I was establishing felt right, even if they were painful to implement. That evening, I made a significant decision. I contacted my lawyer and established an anonymous scholarship fund at the community college I had briefly attended. The Amanda Wilson Entrepreneurship Scholarship would provide full tuition and mentorship to 5 students annually who demonstrated entrepreneurial potential, but lacked traditional academic advantages. Make sure the selection criteria focus on demonstrated initiative and creative problem solving, not grades, I instructed. And find mentors who have built actual businesses, not just top business classes. As weeks passed, my house truly became a home. I planted a garden of native Florida species that attracted butterflies and hummingbirds. I adopted a rescue dog, a mixed breed named Charlie, who accompanied me on beach walks and slept at the foot of my bed. His uncomplicated affection was a daily reminder of how relationships should feel. I found unexpected peace in solitude. Without the constant underlying anxiety of family judgment, I discovered aspects of myself previously overshadowed by that stress. I took a pottery class at a local studio, terrible at it, but enjoying the meditative process. I tried paddleboard yoga, spending more time in the water than on the board, but laughing through each attempt. 3 weeks turned into a month, then 6 weeks. The pain of family rejection remained, but transformed into something less acute, more like an old injury that occasionally ached rather than a fresh wound. I was building something new here, not just a home, but an authentic life aligned with my values rather than someone else's expectations. Then came the unexpected development that would bring my family story full circle in ways I never anticipated. The Naples Business Journal was not a publication I normally read, but Eliza texted me early one morning, insisting I pick up a copy. Page 3. You are going to want to see this. There I was, photographed on my deck with the Gulf of Mexico behind me, under the headline, "E-commerce innovator brings multi-million-dollar business to Naples." The journalist had done her research, detailing Heartland Mate's growth from startup to $20 million valuation, our impact on American manufacturing, and my recent entrepreneurship scholarship foundation. The article painted a picture of success far more comprehensive than anything that had appeared in my hometown media. I didn't authorize this, I told Eliza when she called to congratulate me. Public records, she explained. Property transfers, business registrations. Once they knew you were here, the rest was easy to piece together. Besides, it's a great article. She was right. The piece was well-researched and flattering, focusing on business accomplishments rather than personal details. I thought little more about it until the following week, when my phone began lighting up with social media notifications. The article had been picked up by several larger business publications, then shared extensively through LinkedIn and Facebook. Former high school classmates suddenly remembered our friendship. Teachers claimed they had always seen my potential. Most surprising were the messages from several small business owners in my hometown, thanking me for representing what was possible without following traditional paths. "You inspired me to finally launch my business," wrote one former classmate. "If you could build something so substantial without a fancy degree, maybe my idea has merit too." The local newspaper in my hometown ran a condensed version of the article with an additional angle: "Local entrepreneur makes national impact." The irony was not lost on me. The same community that had subtly reinforced my parents' disappointment now celebrated me as a hometown success story. Through this ripple effect of publicity, my family inevitably discovered the full extent of my success. The first sign came as a friend request from my cousin Susan, followed by several other extended family members who had previously shown little interest in my life. Then came the text from my mother. "Saw the article about your company. Very impressive, dear. Dad and I are so proud." No mention of his cruel words, no acknowledgement of the rift, just a casual claim of pride that had been notably absent when I sat at their dinner table. My father's voice message arrived the next day, his tone artificially jovial. "Amanda, big news about your company in the paper. Always knew you had it in you. There seems to have been a misunderstanding last time we spoke. Call me back when you can." A misunderstanding. That was how he characterized calling his daughter uneducated trash and ordering her out of his house. 3 days later, my mother texted again. "We are thinking of visiting Florida next month. Would love to see your new place. Let us know if that would work for you." The message landed like a stone in my stomach. 6 weeks of healing, of building a new life free from their judgment. And now they wanted to simply appear at my doorstep as if nothing had happened. I didn't respond immediately, instead scheduling an emergency session with Dr. Richardson. "You have several options," she advised after listening to my concerns. "You can decline the visit entirely. You can agree, but set strict boundaries about what you will and will not discuss. Or you can see this as an opportunity for honest conversation that might lead to healing, though that requires their willingness to acknowledge the harm done." After careful consideration, I texted my mother. "You and Dad are welcome to visit, but we need to have an honest conversation about what happened at his birthday dinner before we can move forward. Please let me know if you're open to that kind of discussion." Her response came quickly. "Of course, dear. We just want to put this behind us and be a family again." The phrasing troubled me, that desire to put this behind us without addressing it directly, but I confirmed dates for their visit the following month. As the day approached, I prepared both practically and emotionally. I arranged for them to stay in a nearby hotel rather than my home, preserving my personal space. I role-played difficult conversations with Dr. Richardson, practicing setting boundaries without becoming defensive. My parents arrived on a sunny Tuesday afternoon. I met them at a beachfront restaurant for lunch, a public setting that would help moderate the initial interaction. They looked smaller, somehow less intimidating than they had in Ohio. My father's confident posture seemed diminished. My mother more nervous than I remembered. They both dressed formally despite the coastal setting. My father in a button-down shirt and slacks, my mother in a structured dress better suited to church than beach dining. "This place is something else," my father said, gesturing at the turquoise water visible through the restaurant windows. "You have done well for yourself, Amanda." The slight emphasis on "for yourself" did not escape me, the implication that my success existed in isolation from family values. "Thank you," I replied simply, not filling the awkward silence that followed. My mother jumped in with small talk about their flight, the weather, how different Florida was from Ohio. I responded politely, but did not help carry the conversation. Finally, after our food arrived, my father cleared his throat. "About what happened at my birthday dinner. You called me uneducated trash and a lowlife," I stated calmly. "You told me to get out of your house, and that my money did not make me part of the family." His face flushed. "I was surprised by the news about your business. It caught me off guard. I may have overreacted." Not an apology. An excuse. "I need to understand," I continued, maintaining eye contact. "Was that reaction about me sharing my success, or about learning I had been helping the family financially?" "Both felt like you were showing off," my mother interjected. "Like you were saying you're better than us now." "I never said or thought that," I replied. "I spent years hiding my success to avoid making anyone uncomfortable. I helped financially because I could, and I wanted to support the family I love." My father shifted uncomfortably. "Well, the way you presented it was very forward, and finding out you were behind those other things. It felt like charity we never asked for." The conversation continued in this vein throughout lunch. No genuine apology emerged, just justifications and attempts to minimize the severity of what had transpired. The subtext became increasingly clear. They were here because my public success made rejecting me socially awkward, not because they had reconsidered their assessment of my worth. As we finished our meal, I made a decision. "I'd like to show you my home. But first, I need to be very clear about something. I will not pretend the dinner never happened. I will not accept being called names or having my choices denigrated. If you want a relationship moving forward, it has to be based on mutual respect." They exchanged glances before my father nodded stiffly. "That seems reasonable." When they arrived at my beach house later that afternoon, their expressions, as they took in the expansive ocean view, told me everything. This tangible evidence of my success was impossible to dismiss or minimize. The $20 million valuation was no longer an abstract number, but manifested in beachfront real estate and tasteful luxury. "This is quite something," my father managed, his voice tight. "Would you like a tour?" I offered. As I showed them through the house, pointing out handcrafted items from Heartland-made artisans that decorated each room, I realized something profound. Their approval, which I had sought for so long, no longer held the power it once did. I was proud of this home and the business that made it possible, regardless of their reaction. This revelation was perhaps the most valuable outcome of their visit, worth more than any apology they might have offered. The conversation that followed my parents' tour of the beach house was difficult, but necessary. We sat on the deck overlooking the ocean, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that seemed too beautiful for such a tense discussion. "I want to be clear about something," my father began, his tone more conciliatory than I had ever heard it. "I am sorry for what I said at my birthday. It was uncalled for, regardless of how surprised I was." The apology, while welcome, carried a qualification that diminished its impact. His focus remained on his experience of surprise rather than the harm his words had caused. "What hurt most," I replied carefully, "was that those words seemed to reveal how you truly see me despite everything I have accomplished." My mother reached across the table, not quite touching my hand, but gesturing toward it. "We have always been proud of you, Amanda. We just worried about your future without a degree." "My future is here," I said, gesturing to the house and the business that had made it possible. "I built it without a degree, but with 7 years of working harder than most people ever will. That deserves respect, not condescension." My father shifted uncomfortably. "The business world can be fickle. Companies rise and fall overnight. We just wanted security for you." "I understand that concern comes from love," I acknowledged, "but there is no perfect security in any path. Plenty of people with degrees struggle financially, while others without formal education thrive. What matters is recognizing there are multiple valid paths to success." The conversation continued for hours as the sun set and stars appeared over the Gulf. No dramatic reconciliation occurred. No tearful group hug that magically healed decades of misunderstanding. Instead, we reached a fragile understanding, a starting point rather than a conclusion. Moving forward, I explained as the evening drew to a close, I am open to rebuilding our relationship, but with clear boundaries. I will not accept being demeaned for my educational choices or having my success attributed to luck rather than hard work and skill. My parents agreed. Though I sensed my father's reluctance in his tight smile and the way he qualified his responses, my mother seemed more genuinely receptive, perhaps recognizing for the first time the role she had played by enabling family dynamics that had caused so much pain. After they returned to Ohio, I reflected deeply on the visit and the path that had led me here. The healing process was far from complete, but significant steps had been taken. I maintained limited contact with my parents in the months that followed, brief weekly phone calls that gradually became less awkward. My relationship with my siblings evolved differently. Jennifer eventually offered a genuine apology for her role in the family dynamics, and we slowly rebuilt a connection based on adult friendship rather than childhood patterns. Thomas remained distant, occasionally sending holiday greetings, but making no real effort to understand or acknowledge the harm done. My personal healing journey continued with regular therapy sessions. Dr. Richardson helped me recognize how family trauma had shaped my approach to business and relationships, creating patterns of seeking validation through achievement and financial generosity. Success is not a substitute for self-worth, she reminded me, and family approval cannot be purchased, no matter how much you give. This insight led me to establish clearer boundaries in all relationships. I became more comfortable discussing my accomplishments without minimizing them. I learned to give from genuine generosity rather than as an attempt to buy acceptance. The Entrepreneurship Foundation became a central focus of my philanthropy. Beyond funding scholarships, I developed a mentorship program, pairing successful entrepreneurs without traditional credentials with promising students facing similar challenges. Witnessing their growth and success brought a satisfaction deeper than any family approval could provide. My friend circle in Naples expanded, creating a chosen family based on mutual respect and genuine connection. Our weekly gatherings became a source of joy and belonging I had never experienced in Ohio. These relationships, freely chosen and maintained, taught me what healthy support should feel like. The beach house transformed completely over time. Every room reflected my authentic taste and values rather than generic luxury. The garden flourished with native plants that attracted wildlife. Charlie, my rescue dog, gained a companion when I adopted a second dog from the local shelter, a senior retriever named Luna, whom everyone had overlooked. Running Heartland Made remotely proved so successful that I implemented flexible work policies for all employees, allowing them to work from anywhere for part of the year. Productivity increased, and employee satisfaction scores reached all-time highs. 1 year after my move to Florida, I hosted a dinner party for my new friends. As we gathered around the table on my deck, watching dolphins play in the sunset waves, I realized how completely my life had transformed. From that painful night at my parents' house to this chosen family. Eliza toasted, raising her glass, to Amanda, and to having the courage to prioritize respect over obligation. The sentiment captured exactly what I had learned through this journey. Family connections are valuable, but not at the cost of dignity and self-respect. Success cannot be measured solely by degrees or traditional achievements, but by the lives we touch and the positive impact we create. Most importantly, I learned that forgiveness does not require forgetting or continuing to accept harmful treatment. True forgiveness is an internal process of releasing anger and resentment while still maintaining boundaries that protect your well-being. My story is still unfolding, as all our stories are. The relationship with my parents continues to evolve, sometimes progressing, sometimes regressing to old patterns. I maintain my boundaries with compassionate firmness, accepting that complete understanding may never come, but refusing to compromise my self-worth in seeking it. If my experience offers any wisdom worth sharing, it is this: your value is not determined by others' perceptions, especially those clouded by outdated beliefs or expectations. Success comes in countless forms, often unexpected ones, and sometimes the most painful rejections lead to the most authentic and fulfilling paths forward.